So people come here in the back of a lorry or on a boat across the channel as an asylum seeker, and being softies, we say, yeah, okay, all right, you can stay. Now, over 50 people a day come into Britain because they say, oh, my uncle's there, my nan's there, my little kid's there. And so what's really happening is we let people across the channel. It isn't just them that come. Ultimately, their whole families come as well. We must be absolutely mad. In America, what Donald Trump is doing already is deporting people who've come into America illegally. And far from being the monster, now over 50% of Britons think Trump is doing the right thing.
Imagine this: a British political figure, whether you agree with him or not, nearly attacked in the heart of Dublin, and not a single leader speaks up. No defense of free speech, no condemnation of violence, just
far more
silence.
Profound and far more disturbing.
In four-star hotels, I see illegal migrants who, by the way, might have escaped a war-torn country, but they ain't got their wife and kids with them. They're in a hotel as well, and suddenly me, a good old British voter, a good old person who hasn't broken the law, feels like a fifth-class citizen. It's not good enough the way I think. I think we're too soft. I think if we made it harder, if you didn't get a hotel and a car and a house and your backside wiped while our own people are struggling, I think that would be a deterrent. Don't you think we're too soft?
It's about fairness. It's simply about fairness. All those arguments that you just made, people are incensed.
Yeah.
That young males who, by the way, throw their iPhones and their passports into the channel, and I filmed this myself being out there on a small boat, they chuck them into the sea at the 12-mile line. Do you know they're given a new iPhone as soon as they get to Dover?
God.
No, I'm not making this up, I promise you. Everything's free. They get, 40 quid a week fag money. The whole thing's unbelievable. So it's about fairness.
It was a symbol of a culture unraveling before our very eyes. What drew global attention to this moment wasn't the outrage, but the deafening silence that followed. Let's be clear about what took place. Nigel Farage, a man known for his controversial views and unapologetic rhetoric, stood in the heart of Dublin and voiced what many Irish citizens have quietly believed for years: that free speech is under siege, that political debate is being stifled by a dangerous combination of radical ideology and institutional cowardice. And how did the crowd respond? Not with dialogue, not with protest, but with threats and violent intimidation.
In Dublin have left many stunned. Nigel Farage, a man known for his controversial but unapologetic views, faced an angry crowd while speaking on the streets. This wasn't just about politics or immigration. It was a warning sign for both Ireland and Britain, a sign that free speech is in real danger.
Immigration and deportations are two separate issues. We have a Minister for Immigration, and the decisions that he or she makes are things like what visas to approve, what are the skill shortages. But the idea of deportations is something entirely different. This is about removing people who have no right to be here, whether they are failed asylum seekers or their visas have run out. We should separate these issues, shouldn't we?
The clash wasn't over simple policy differences. It was a raw, emotional confrontation. Some protesters hurled threats, and yet, no Irish leader came forward to say, "We may not agree with him, but he has the right to speak." That silence was
the
deafening.
really interesting thing, and what nobody seems to want to talk about, is what is GDP per capita? What is wealth? How do we measure it by the individual? And once again, it was down. And here's the thing. Since the fourth quarter in 2022, GDP per capita has increased in 2 quarters, but fallen in 6. We are getting poorer. And yet it seems to me the only way we get any GDP growth at all is through mass migration. Why? Because there are more people. So the economy is that little bit bigger, and that's what GDP measures. It measures the size overall of the productive economy. I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that mass migration is making us poorer as a country in every way. Interestingly, since the mass migration experiment began, productivity has fallen as well. And I remember for so many years, people saying, look, Nigel, you may be right. You may have your concerns about population growth. You may have your concerns about cultural integration. But hey, they're all coming into work. It's good for the economy. So why don't you shut up and order another pint? Actually, what we've learned is the vast majority of those that have been coming in the last few years don't work at all. And those that do, if they're in low-skilled jobs, overall, are going to cost the economy in the long run.
At the same time, public frustration over illegal migration is boiling over. People see small boats crossing the channel every day. They hear about young men being housed in hotels, given weekly allowances, while locals struggle with bills, housing, and public services. Critics say Britain has become too soft, creating incentives for more crossings. The Rwanda deportation plan, once a key deterrent, has been scrapped. And many believe the current government has no real strategy.
Across country after country after country, and I really believe that Westminster, the intellectuals, the liberal elites just don't get it. They still are trying to brush under the carpet the issue of immigration. You know, just for example, 2.5 million more cars on our roads in the last 5 years. You haven't got to be Einstein to work out that if your population is rising between 300 and 500,000 every year, there are going to be more cars on the motorway. It doesn't need much to work out. That's increased pressure on social services. The concerns that British people have on this issue are not based on dislikes or hatreds on racism. They're based, I think, on plain common sense that we need to get a grip, we need to get control. So I don't see this issue going away any time soon.
Point in leaving the EU and all that involved if we don't leave the ECHR. That's like halfway hotel, isn't it? It's pointless. Sharon in Wigan, for you, Nigel, talk. Please ask Nigel how we get rid of the loonies out before they ruin our UK. I'm having sleepless nights worrying about bills, and all I see is illegal young men coming from dangerous countries being treated better than I am. There you are.
Sharon, the bad news is it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Let's confront an uncomfortable truth. The streets are becoming increasingly radicalized, all under the guise of activism. We've arrived at a point where many protests are no longer rooted in justice. They're driven by the pursuit of...
Supporters of tougher border controls point out that mass migration isn't just changing the cultural landscape, it's putting heavy pressure on infrastructure, increasing congestion, and even pushing GDP per capita down. Others warn that dismissing public concern as far-right only deepens division and silences debate. But the Dublin incident has shifted the conversation. This is now about something bigger than immigration. Policy? It's about whether we're willing to protect democracy itself. Free speech means defending the right to speak, even when it's uncomfortable. If political leaders remain silent in moments like this, the message to ordinary citizens is clear. You're on your own. And that is how freedom dies, not with dramatic headlines, but with quiet surrender. So here's the real question. Do you believe in the right to speak freely, even when it's unpopular? Should violence and intimidation ever decide our politics? If your answer is yes, then don't stay silent. Like, share, and comment your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe to Notary Voice, because in times like these, every voice matters.